Hello and welcome to episode 99 of 10,000 Stitches podcast, a bi-weekly chit-chat all about the joys of knitting. My name is Andy and thanks for joining me this week. If you were looking for me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry as Purlbug, P-U-R-L-B-U-G. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and then we have the 10,000 Stitches podcast group on Ravelry. If you're looking for links to anything that I mentioned today, any like patterns or shops or anything that I can link to, there will be, if you're watching via the embedded video on the blog post or the Ravelry thread, everything will be linked right below. If you're watching this on YouTube, in the description box below the video, there will be a link to the blog post. And then, like I said, once you go there, everything will be right below the video. I think I might have forgotten to do it last time, but I have been trying to also put timestamps, at least on YouTube, in the description box below the video so that, you know, if you are only interested in particular things, you can skip right to those. But I think I might have forgotten to do that last time. Oops. But I mean, when I published the last video, it was a little bit weird because I was actually on vacation then, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, full episode. I actually don't have any finished objects this week, but we do have some works in progress. No dyeing to talk about. We'll catch up on the knit along and question of the week, and then we will do some chit chat. So yeah, as a quick reminder before we get going, so next episode is episode 100, and like I mentioned in the last episode, I'm going to be doing an AMA for episode 100, which AMA stands for Ask Me Anything. And the way that I'm sort of gathering questions for that is via a Google form. So I will put that linked below the video everywhere. So on YouTube, the blog, Ravelry, that will be linked below the video, so you can just click that and go there. It's just a quick little thing that you can, you know, ask a question, whatever you want, and if you want to remain anonymous, you totally can. But part of this also is, you know, because we're hitting episode 100 and we just hit 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, I'm also doing a little bit of a 2K giveaway. So this is also the method for how to enter that, right? So as you go through that form, it will give you an option like, do you or do you not want to enter the giveaway? And if you do, then you can put in your contact info for that. You actually, if you just want to enter but you don't necessarily have a question, you can just, you know, I don't know, say something nice in the question spot and just enter the giveaway. That's fine too. Or, you know, like, don't feel like, you know, you have to come up with necessarily a unique question, or, you know, don't worry too much about if maybe you think your question has been answered before, because that's kind of the whole point of doing this, is because I feel like there's been, you know, little bits, you know, that I've talked about through the past 100 episodes, but for anyone who's maybe coming to the podcast recently or something like that, it's sort of like a reintroduction after 100 episodes and almost 3 years. So yeah, if you're interested, like I said, that will be linked in everywhere that this video is. And thank you to everyone who's already sent me some questions. I have actually been checking through them, and they're fun. I like reading through them, and I will be really excited to answer them next time I sit down and record. So yeah. I apologize if I'm a little bit off my game today. This is literally the first time I have spoken all day. It is currently Sunday. Oh gosh, what day is it? It is Sunday, August 26th, and this episode will go up on Tuesday, August 28th, and I haven't left the apartment today, and I haven't spoken to anyone, so you guys are getting the first bit of me today. Also, I live near a church, and I think a church service is like kind of just getting out right now, so I apologize for any extra background noise, you know, more than normal, but let's forget all that. Let's talk some knitting. And I actually have lots of works in progress to show you. So let's start with the one that I maybe have the least to say on, but I want to show it, and that is my Luella Cardi. As a reminder, this is the Luella Cardi, which is by, why do I always forget this? It is by Susie Sparkles. And this is this really pretty lace yoke cardigan that I am making out of my own hand-dyed yarn. And I think when I talked about this last time, I talked a decent amount about it. And I said that I had just divided for the sleeves, and I was kind of unsure as to whether the fit across the armpits was good or not, and I needed to block it to kind of figure that out. So I have done that. You actually maybe can tell that it's off the needles now. I've put it on waste yarn, and I gave it just, a soak, and I didn't really block it, but I just sort of, let it, stretch it out a little bit and let it dry. And so this is how it looks now. And I think I have decided that the fit is okay, because of course blocking sort of lengthened the lace out a little bit and brought the bottom of the yoke down a little bit. So I think I've decided that this is okay and I'm fine with it. And now I really just need to get it back on the needles and get working on it again. But I actually used those needles to swatch for some other idea that was in my head that ultimately I don't think is going to work, but then I left the needles at work. So no progress has really been made on this since the last time I showed it to you, but I just wanted to show it off again and mention that I'm excited to get back to working on it, and hopefully that will happen soon. So hopefully by the time you guys see it next, there will be some more progress on it. But that's my Luella Cardi. I'm super excited to get back to working on it, but yeah, I just need to actually get that done. I actually didn't soak it and block it until maybe Tuesday of this past week. I didn't do it before I went on vacation just because I was like, well, I mean, I'm not going to take it with me. So then I just kind of didn't do it. So yeah, just to check in on that one, but not much to really talk about. I'll talk more details about it the next time I show it off. So let's talk my half object. And this one I'm really excited about. So this is something that I showed off last time, and it is now a half object, and that is my first knee sock. So I talked about these last time. These are my Holly Jolly knee highs, and they are basically just some Christmas knee high socks that I'm making. And this is the first time I'm making knee high socks for myself. I have made knee high socks before for my mom. Those ones I made top down. These are actually being made toe up just because I wasn't really sure about the yarn requirements and I wasn't really sure what the top circumference wound up needing to be. So yeah, one of them is done. And just some details. So it starts out as a 72 stitch sock on a US 0, which is a 2mm needle. Just sort of my standard rounded toe, and then foot and a fish lips kiss heel, and then just up the leg. And then I did this cute little pico, whatever you say it, little folded hem here. And yeah, that's that. I won't talk too much about the super specific details, but I have made a lot of notes on my Ravelry page for these, if you're curious. So you can definitely go there and get more specific things like how often did I increase, and exactly how I do my toe up toes, and my final stitch count, and all that kind of stuff. You can find that on the project page, which I will link to in the notes. So this is the finished one. And then this is the one which is in progress. So as you can see, I'm all the way through the foot, and I've actually started sort of the increase sections along the leg, and I'm just chugging along on it. I haven't actually touched it in a few days just because I was working on it really hard, and then I just, needed a little bit of a break. So I'll show you what I've been working on actually pretty much the entire weekend. And so this hasn't been touched in a few days, but again, excited to get back to it, and excited to have a finished pair of knee highs. As you can tell, the colors are inverted. So this one has the solid red and the green speckled yarn, and this has the solid green and the red speckled yarn. And then they have the same contrasting heels and toes. So yeah, super duper excited about that. I don't know how much else I have to say about it. Yeah, except I did have leftover yarn. So again, I made note of the exact amounts on my project page, but I had about this much of the two colors that I was striping left over from the first one. So it did not take 100 grams. I think it wound up only taking about 75 grams of yarn to make this sock. So I'm pretty pleased about that. And like I said last time, I have some Halloween socks that I want to make. And so this definitely has been helpful in kind of figuring out how that's going to go. And yeah, I don't think I have anything else to really say about that. So that's that. Cool. How am I doing for time? Doing fine. So let's talk Okay, let's not quite talk about the thing that I've been working on all weekend. Let's talk about my most recent cast on, which is another pair of socks, and this is just sort of my at-work project. And this is just going to be a pair of little shorty socks. Again, or I guess not again. These are being knit 64 stitches on a US 1, which is a 2.25 millimeter needle. And basically these are just a vanilla sock, except it has this little bit of stranded color work on it. And these are sort of a version 2 of what I called my Vogue Knitting Live socks, which is what I was knitting on back in January when we went up to Vogue Knitting Live in New York. And those had sort of the same thing where they had this little rolled cuff and then a little bit of color work and then a little bit of color work along the arch and then a little bit more color work along the toe. So I'm just sort of, playing around with that a little bit more. And otherwise it's basically a plain vanilla sock. And again, I'll have details on my project page about this, but I basically knit, I think I did 15 rows of just plain knit, and then I did 10 rows? 10 rows of this sort of what I call 1x1 stranded, which is just, knit one main color, knit one contrasting color. Then I did my standard sort of 64 stitch heel, gusset, and then I knit 5 rows after the gusset in the main color, and now I think I'm going to do another 15 rows of this 1x1, and then all the way to the toe, and then I'll do a little bit more of that 1x1 stranded, and then I'll do the toe in the contrasting color. So the colors I'm using for this, the main color is the leftover yarn from my Man Friend socks that I knit socks for Wesley out of not too long ago. And I don't know how well you guys will be able to see this, but it is sort of this dark gray-brown color with little hints of red in it. And I really like it, and I'm hoping I have enough because I'm going to do the toes in this contrasting color. And this contrasting color is just some leftover Cascade Heritage sock. I just knocked a huge bunch of it off the ball. Leftover Cascade Heritage sock in I think just like the cream colorway or something. I've had this for quite a while because I never wanted to actually make a full pair of socks out of it, so I've just used it for a lot of, heels, cuffs, and toes. And I'm sure I will have more left after this even. But yeah, I'm hoping that put together I will have enough to make a full pair of little short socks because I only have like 45 grams of this main color left, so we shall see. But yeah, again, not much to talk about with that. Just, pretty basic pair of socks, and they've been good for, kind of when I'm at work because I don't have to do a lot of thinking about the actual structure of the sock itself since it's pretty much my normal vanilla sock. And the little bit of stranded color work, I can do 1x1 stranded color work, so that keeps it nice and easy, but also pretty interesting because it comes frequently enough with it being a shorter sock that it keeps things interesting without being too complicated. So yeah, so that's that. This is just sort of my live in my desk project. So I don't know how often you guys will see this after today because I'm probably just going to leave it at work on the weekends, but I wanted to bring it home and show it. So, you'll maybe see it once, I don't know, whenever I decide to bring it home again, which may not be next time. But yeah, that's my work project. And that brings me to the thing I've been working on all weekend, which is my Ribwise tank, I think that's the name of it, by Pearl Soho. And this is something that has sat untouched for maybe close to a month. I know I didn't talk about it on the last podcast because I just hadn't done anything with it. So yeah, it has been untouched for quite a while. And I don't know why that was. I just sort of lost a little bit of steam on it. But I've picked it back up and I have made a ton of progress on it. So this is where I am on it. So as a reminder, this is a tank top which is knit in 2 pieces, right? So the front and the back are knit separately, and then they're seamed up the sides and I think at the shoulders, and then I think you pick it up and knit a little border around it. And I am knitting, I think I'm knitting the size 36 at a slightly tighter gauge than what the pattern calls for, just because I wanted it to be a little bit less loosely knit. So hopefully, and a size 36 would be slightly big on me, so I'm hoping that it will all even out. It kind of seems to, when I hold this up to my body, but I mean, it's always so hard to tell. But yeah, so this is knit bottom up, so I'm actually almost to the point where I need to start dividing for the straps. But the cool part about it is that it doesn't actually have any increases or decreases for the waist shaping. All of the waist shaping comes from this ribbing along the side, which I don't know if you guys will be able to see or not. So you can kind of see that ribbed panel along the side. So that's on both sides, and then it also is the same panel along the back piece as well. And what that does is it just subtly draws in the sides a little bit, just to give it a little bit of gentle waist shaping. So let's see, modifications that I've made. I knit like about 10 rows of garter at the bottom instead of, I forget what the pattern has you do. I think they have you do like an applied I-cord edge or something to the bottom later on, which I didn't want to do, so I just knit 10 rows of garter. I knit an extra 10 rows of sort of length before I started with these side ribbing panels. And I am doing, in this 1x1 ribbing, I am doing the knit stitches, which are part of the ribbing, as twisted knit stitches on the right side of the work, if that makes sense. So in the ribbing part, on the right side of the work, these are twisted knit stitches. I'm not doing twisted purl stitches on the back. So yeah, like I said, I'm almost to the point where I need to split off the straps. I don't know if you guys can see them, but that's what these little row markers are for, is just counting off how many rows I have since I stopped, or since I finished sort of the side panels. And yeah, I'm super excited about it. Yeah, I'm excited to be able to wear it, and I'm already sort of envisioning like the next one I want to make. And rude. And yeah, I'm just really excited about it. So I am knitting this on a US 2.5, which is a 3mm needle, which is one size, or well, I guess half a size, whatever, smaller than what the pattern calls for. They call for a US 3. And I just think that would be way too loose. I might even step it down next time to a US 2. Which is a 2.75mm needle, depending on how this winds up fitting me. We'll see. But the two yarns that I'm using for this are two of my hand-dyed yarns, and these are on a 75/25 superwash merino nylon, just regular sock base. And as a reminder, this is what they look like. So I talked a little bit about this before, but basically the way that I dyed these was I mixed up the dye, and then I put the darker skeins in first, and I waited until they had absorbed most of the dye, and then I put the lighter skeins in. So they actually both came from the same dye mix, they're just two different values of it. And I think it really makes them complement each other nicely. And so the front of the tank top gets knit in this light color, and then the back will get knit in this darker color. And these are 2 extra 50-gram skeins. So basically what I did was I dyed up full 100-gram skeins of both colors, and then I took a third skein, divided it in half, and dyed up an extra 50 grams of each color as well at the same time, because I just am not sure how much yarn it's going to take. I mean, like I said, I'm about ready to split for the straps, and I still have this much left of my first ball of the lighter color, which makes me think that maybe I can eke this thing out with only 100 grams for each side, basically, or 100 grams of each color, which would be great, because if it only takes 100 grams of each color, well, now I have a whole bunch of ideas for maybe things that are already in my stash that I'm just kind of like, what am I going to do with this? I have some ideas on what I could do. So I am super duper excited for this. I don't doubt that I will probably get to splitting for the straps by the end of the day today, because I'm just really enjoying working on it. Yeah, I expect that, you guys will see lots of progress on this by the next time I record. Hopefully the front should be done, and I should be making good progress on the back. So that's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about it. And so I know this is like a thing in the knitting world, and I'm like the last person on earth to do this, especially among knitting podcasters. But I love the idea of enamel pins, but I have never really bought any enamel pins because I just wasn't sure what to do with them. And I know a lot of people put them on their project bags, especially if you have like the Fringe Field Supply Co. bags, which I love to death, but I cannot bring myself to spend, like $60 on it. Like, it's just mind-blowing to me. I might ask for one for Christmas, we'll see. But anyway, I realized that this bag could hold some of my enamel pins. And actually, most of these are new enamel pins because, I don't know if I've talked about this before, but Wesley really wants us to take a trip to Disney once we, are back in the same place again and have some disposable income. And I think it really hurts him that I have never been to Disney. And so, I maybe don't feel this, draw quite as much as he does. But anyway, he was out in California for work a little while ago and actually had a couple hours where he could go to Disneyland. And they've started doing like the enamel pins at Disney and like pin trading and stuff. And so he picked me up a couple of like blind bags. And so all of these little ones, so that one and this one, all came from those little blind bags. And then this one is one that he bought particularly just for me. And I love it. It's a little Mickey with a little Canada. I don't know how well you guys can tell. It has like the little maple leaf for Canada on it. And I freaking love it. Because I think if I had to pick somewhere else in the world to live, it might be Canada, just because I like Canada. I like Canadians. You know, everything about it. So I just think this is like so visually just like you got it, Disney, you did it. And then he also got me this pin because he also had to go out to Colorado for work. And so this is the great, are you not gonna focus on that? Focus on it. It's the Great Sand Dunes National Park. And so he went to that and got me a little pin. And he also got himself a little pin, and his is also really cool, but I don't obviously have it here. And then the other one I have is, it's like the Little Peanuts gang, and it's from a baseball game. And I think my mom got me for that back in 2014. It's like a really, really old pin, and I just didn't know what to do with it. So yeah, I'm kind of excited to fill up this thing with some enamel pins. Pretty cool. I'm excited. Anyway, I gotta stop about that. So yeah, so that's all of my works in progress. So let's talk really quick about what's coming up next. So I really want to finish some of these whips. It wasn't until I kind of gathered them all up to record that I realized, like, man, I have a fair number of things kind of going all at once right now. And of course, as knitters, we like to kind of justify this, right? And I can kind of justify it, right? Like, I feel like the socks that I'm knitting at work, those kind of don't count because those only live at work, and like they're not a source of stress for me or anything. They're just kind of like something to do when I have to sit in meetings or something like that. So I kind of don't count those as like a real whip, I guess. They're like a bonus whip. But I do basically have two garments going right now. You know, I have the Luella and the tank. And so I would like to get those finished up before I start any other big projects, or at least one of those finished up before I start another big project. And, you know, I've talked about making another match and move with sort of that fade that I have planned. So that might be something that I do as like another big project once I get some of this stuff finished up. Or, what else? There's a pattern that has not been released yet, but I keep seeing pictures of it on Instagram, and it's the Ripple crop top. And I forget the name of the designer. I'll try and put a picture of it on the screen. I think it's supposed to be released September 7th or something like that. But I think it's super cute. It looks like it's probably a pretty easy and quick knit because it's, you know, it's a crop top, so it's shorter, and it's got like short little sleeves on it. And it looks like a super cute piece to make with like some fun yarn, and it would be good for like just spicing up like a dress or something. Because I already do that, where I will sometimes have like a dress and I'll put on a pullover sweater over it, and it completely changes the look of the dress because it basically turns the dress into a skirt, and it can just completely make a dress into like a different outfit. So that seems like that crop top looks like something that might be good for something like that. I'm not normally a crop top person. I would normally never show any of this. But, you know, as an idea of like something just to pop over a dress to change the look of it, I kind of like that. So that might be something I look into once it, you know, actually gets published. But yeah, I'm mostly just trying to kind of finish up the stuff that I have going on, which I know you guys can't see most of it, but you know, it's all right over here. I mostly want to kind of finish up the stuff I have going on before I take on any other new big projects. So yeah. All right. So for our current knit along, as a reminder, it ends on August 31st. So still just a couple days to maybe finish something up before that ends. Yeah, right? I don't know what yes, yeah, it ends August 31st, right? So yeah, so still a couple days to finish something up for that before that one ends. And as a reminder, the prize yarn for that is this beauty that I dyed up before the last time I recorded in what I'm calling the pastel pumpkin colorway. and it's this really pale orange, and some other goodies. But yeah, so that's that. And then we have, I think, about 50 or so entries, so I'm pretty excited about it, and it's been really fun to see them come in. And yeah, so let's talk really quick about the next knit along. So the next knit along will run from September 1st through October 31st. All the usual rules are the same regarding, all of that kind of stuff, the specific, the general rules. And I will do my best to get the threads up for that knit along early, so that you actually have all the rules there. But in terms of the theme for this knit along, the sort of word is simple, and the theme is simple. And so what that breaks down to is a technique of basically totally vanilla. So this is basic vanilla things, right? So it's like kind of the opposite of our current knit along, which is all over patterning. This is basically no patterning. So if you're knitting socks, that means a basic plain vanilla sock. If you are knitting a sweater, that means a basic plain vanilla sweater, right? Basically no embellishments whatsoever. I mean, of course, things like ribbing, that's fine, but yeah, basically no patterning. And so I figured this is kind of a good time to be doing this, because for anyone who's kind of in back to school mode, like, things are crazy right now, so maybe it's good to just have some nice simple knitting. Also good for, like, if you're trying to bust out some gift knitting early, like, just bust out some vanilla socks and get them ready for Christmas. So and of course this does not necessarily imply what the yarn has to look like, right? But, like, in terms of stitch patterning, nothing. So that's the technique theme. And then the color theme, so originally I had it down as solid pastels, and I need a little bit of feedback from you guys sort of soon, before I kind of put up the threads for this. But I'm kind of thinking that maybe solid pastels is a little bit too narrow, because, like, I know not everyone necessarily likes pastels. So my question for you guys, let me know, wherever, on Ravelry, in the YouTube comments, wherever. Would you prefer that it just be solids, period, right? Like not necessarily pastels, but just solid colors in general? Because I guess that still sort of fits the theme of simple, and it's maybe a little bit less restrictive for people who are not into pastels. Let me know what you think about that. But basically it's going to be solids of some sort. So yeah, so it's going to be a very simple, easy knit along, but I figured that's sort of what we need in autumn time. Might be a good time to bust out, those yarns that you just have maybe been longingly staring at, and, like, giving a little stroke every so often and petting, and it's like, it just really needs to be something vanilla. Use it, right? Let's do this. So yeah, that's going to be the next knit along, and I'm super excited for it. So yeah, I think that's all the knit along news, I think. So let's do question of the week. And this is a question of the week that I have been sort of thinking about a lot lately. And it's something that's been on my mind a long time, kind of like as a maker or crafter, however I want to define myself. But it's something that has been sort of weighing heavily on me lately. And so the question is, gosh, I'm hoping I can phrase this right on the first try, but basically, is having a handmade wardrobe part of the goal from your crafting, right? So, like, basically, do you want to be able to have sort of a me-made wardrobe? Or is that not why you craft? Like, and obviously this is, I guess, mostly geared towards people who craft wearable items rather than people who do mostly, like, home goods or something like that. But basically, like, is your sort of ideal perfect world vision of your wardrobe one that you have made yourself, or at least made a significant portion of yourself, right? Maybe all of your sweaters are handmade, or all of your socks are handmade, or something like that, right? Is like some significant portion of your wardrobe handmade. And, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, because I think for me, that is sort of my goal, right? Like, I would like an entirely handmade wardrobe, but it is just not really in the cards for me right now, to be able to do that, right? And those of you who have been around for a while know that, like, I had tried to do some sewing a while ago, and it just didn't really work out, partly because of just the space that I'm in. It's just not big enough, right? Like, I don't have room right now to have, like, a nice big table and to have, all the things that I need to be able to sew. So it just didn't work out. but like it is something that I've been thinking about, especially as I'm thinking about moving, and Wesley and I are sort of making some I don't know, like the least firm possible plans. Like we're basically saying like, yeah, we would like to get a bigger place once I move in with him, maybe a bigger apartment, maybe a house, we don't really know. But like this is something I've been thinking about, like, okay, well, if we get a bigger place, I would like to maybe have a craft room, and I would like to maybe have a place where I can have like a nice big sewing table, and I can have a sewing machine out all the time, something like that. So like it is a like sort of a goal of mine, but it can be really tough to try and like rein that back and realize like, okay, yes, this is a thing that I want eventually, but this current season of my life, right now, is not the correct season of life to be attempting this, right? I've really had to sort of like stifle sort of the impulse I have to be like, well, I want to make the things now, and it's like, no, you can't make the things now, you have to wait. So that is kind of tough sometimes, especially when you're sort of type A like me, where it's like, no, just do it now. So that's my question to you guys. Like, is having a handmade wardrobe your goal, or is it not? And if so, maybe like, how's that going for you? Like are you sort of similar to me, where you're in a season of life where it's just not going to work? Or do you have a significant portion of your wardrobe which is handmade, in which case, kudos, like way to be awesome. Share your witchcraft with me. But yeah, just let's open up a discussion about that. And I think sometimes too, like it can be tough to sort of remember that like, just because you can do a thing, you don't have to do a thing, right? I feel like there's a lot of expectation in sort of the general crafty community that like, if you can make a handmade wardrobe, you should make a handmade wardrobe. And, issues of unethical fashion aside, right? That's a talk for a different time. Like, just because you could sew all of your clothes, or just because you could knit all of your sweaters, doesn't mean you have to. If you just don't enjoy doing that kind of stuff, don't do it, right? And that's totally fine too. So, just some thoughts on that. And let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Like, I'd be curious. But I think that's basically all I have for the knitting sort of stuff for today. So if that's all you were here for, thanks very much for hanging out, and I will see you, I guess, is it next week? Do I kind of have like my dates screwed up in my head? I feel like maybe that's why I'm sort of confused about like when the knit along ends and stuff, because I feel like I have my dates weird in my head. So, okay, so yeah, so I actually am planning on recording the AMA next weekend, because next weekend is a holiday weekend here in the States, so that would sort of break my normal 2-week cycle. So that's why my brain is all confused about like dates and things. Okay, so if you're leaving now, I should see you again next week. Otherwise, hang around. I'm gonna go make myself some coffee, and we can chit chat about my vacation and just what's been going on with me for the past 2 weeks and all the cool fun things. So let's do that. All right, so I have my coffee, I have my planner here, so if you see me looking down, that's what I'm looking at, just because I'm trying to remember what has happened since the last time I recorded. But yeah, got some coffee. Hopefully I don't spill it all over myself. I filled my mug just a little bit more full than I maybe should have. Darn, that's good. Fun fact, so actually this mug came to me via the lost and found that I have in my office. Some student left it behind, and this was like a year and a half ago. Some student left it behind and never came back for it. And because it's all ceramic and silicone, I was able to disinfect it, and now it's mine, and I love it. Great. So anyway, and I really need the coffee today because my jerk neighbors decided to have a party into the wee hours of the morning last night. And I know I talk about this all the time, and like, don't get me wrong, like, I'm not anti-fun, right? But I am just anti-being rude. Like, it's one thing to be at a bar and be drunk and be yelling and be noisy, right? Like, that's where you're supposed to be doing that. I'm pretty sure these kids weren't old enough to be at a bar, which is part of the problem. But like, it's another thing to be standing outside on the street in front of, like, in a residential area, right? In front of other people's houses, yelling in the middle of the night. Very upsetting. So I did not get a lot of sleep last night, so it is definitely a day that coffee is needed. And I keep thinking, like, what can I do to like exact my revenge on these people? And because I wake up very early, so I keep thinking like, oh, at like 5:45 when I wake up, I should just go outside with pots and pans and bang them in front of their doors and stuff. But I bet that they're in such a drunken stupor that they probably wouldn't wake up anyway. Anyway, so what have I been up to? Okay, so I recorded the last episode actually a day early. I might have mentioned that when I was recording it, but I recorded the last episode a day early, and then last Sunday, no, not last Sunday, the Sunday before last Sunday, right? So August 12th, I left to go on, I think it was like a 9-day trip or something back home, because this was basically the only time I had between summer classes ending and fall classes beginning. So I wanted to take advantage of it as much as possible. And I had every intention to vlog, and then I didn't, right? But I did have every intention, which will be shown by this clip here. All right, we're vlogging on a moving walkway. It means I'm in an airport. I'm holding the phone with my wrong hand, so I have no idea where the camera is. But anyway, I'm on vacation. Welcome to the vlog. I don't know how much I'm going to vlog for this trip because it's a really long trip. It's like 9 days. So it'll probably be just little bits here and there. But yeah, just got in. My flight got very delayed. But I'm here, so I'm trying to make my way to my ride, which is my mom's. So I don't know when I'll see you guys again, but I will check back in with you guys later. Yeah. So I recorded that clip, and then I think I maybe recorded a couple, like 2 other little clips, and then just like completely didn't, like could not even, just because like I was spending a lot of time around my family, and like I didn't know that if they wanted to be on the vlog, and I don't know, like I just was enjoying living my life. So it's kind of like one of those sorry not sorry things, but whatever, right? So I had quite a few delays getting into Minneapolis. Luckily my flight was a nonstop flight there, so like as soon as I got on the plane, it was like, all right, I'm getting there. But it just took a little while to actually get on the plane, which is whatever, right? Like I've traveled so much over the past year that I just can't get worked up about it anymore. It's like, whatever, right? I'll get there when I get there. So yeah, and then the next day, so then this was Monday the 13th, I got a car. I rented a car and drove down to Iowa City to see my dad and my brother. And it was really nice actually because my little brother had gone down there too. So my older brother lives in Iowa City. My little brother lives in Minneapolis. So my little brother had made the trip down. So we had just a couple hours before my little brother had to leave that we were all together. So we went out to dinner and everything. So that was really fun. It's rare that the 3 of us can actually be in the same place at the same time, and especially now that my parents are divorced and living in 2 different places, right? It was one thing when they were both in Minneapolis, but now that they're living in 2 different places, like it's hard to get all of us kids in the same place at the same time. So that was really great. I'm glad we got to do that. So then I stayed down there through Tuesday. And then did I come back up on Wednesday? I think I might have come back up on Wednesday, back up to the Twin Cities. And I actually stayed with Wesley's parents just because, like, at the time I was coming back up, it was like traffic is less bad getting to his parents' place than getting to my mom's place. So stayed with his parents for the night and then went back over to my mom's place. And then my mom and I went out for breakfast Friday morning, which was really nice. There was this really cute little diner kind of thing in her neighborhood, which was very cute, very good food, like some of the best bacon I've had in quite a while. And then Wesley was getting into town on Friday, right? So now we're up to Friday the 17th. So then once my mom and I got done with breakfast, she had to go into work for a couple of hours. And then I went to go pick Wesley up at the airport, and that was really nice because I think I've mentioned this before, but Wesley and I, before I went to go pick him up that Friday, we hadn't seen each other since June 10th, just because, like I said, he'd done some traveling over the summer for his work, and I was teaching all summer, so like it just did not work out for us to see each other all summer. So it was really nice to be able to see him. So I picked him up from the airport. Anyone who isn't familiar sort of with the Minneapolis airport, so the Minneapolis airport is huge and very busy all the time, but it's also right next to the Mall of America. So it's very easy, like if you're picking someone up from the airport, to then like pop over to the Mall of America. Or if you happen to have a long layover in the Minneapolis airport, leave and go to the Mall of America. And like the Mall of America is like a big deal for people who've never been there before, but like for Wesley and I, it's just kind of like the mall now because it actually is literally the closest mall to his parents' place. So it's just like, oh, you want to go to the mall? Like that means going to the Mall of America. We just go there. So anyway, so his parents met us there for lunch, and then I think he and I just hung out for a little while more, and then the next day was my mom's wedding, which was really the whole point of the entire trip. She had planned this out so that, my older brother hadn't started teaching yet, I hadn't started teaching yet, summer stuff was done, my brother had been traveling over the summer, right? So she basically picked the one possible day that all three of us kids could be there, and was like, all right, I'm getting married this day. So it was a very small sort of wedding, like just basically family and like some friends of theirs. And yeah, it went off without a hitch. It went really, really well, right? Like everyone was on top form. I mean, obviously, I don't know what my mom felt about it. I asked her what she thought about it the next day, and she said she really enjoyed it. But I thought it went really well. I think it was like as good as it possibly could have been. So, and it was relatively stress-free because it was so small and they weren't really like doing a bunch of stuff. So yeah, I was pretty pleased with it. I'll ask her if she minds if I post a picture. If not, you will be seeing a picture of my mom and her new husband. I am not going to call him my stepfather because that just seems really weird. Not like that I don't like him. I like him a lot. He's great. But it's just weird because like I'm an adult, right? So the idea of like having step parents at this age is just like, no. Like you're my mother's husband and that's fine. And I like you and you're fine. But like, yeah, anyway. So maybe you'll have seen a picture of that. There was this really weird painting in like sort of the dining room where we were having like the reception, which if I didn't put up the picture of my mom, I will put up a picture of Wesley and I standing in front of it because it was just this like real weird picture. But yeah, so that was all good. And then what else did we do? I'm trying like it's like it was so not long ago, and yet it just is all sort of a blur. Oh, the fun thing. So then after the wedding, Wesley and I were going to head back over to his parents' place, or, whatever, back over there because that's where we were staying. And it turns out that it wasn't really on the way, but it was sort of not too far off being on the way. There's an Aston Martin dealership, and Wesley really wants an Aston Martin. Like it's like sort of his like dream car. And so we went to an Aston Martin dealership and actually sat in Aston Martins. And if you don't know, Aston Martin is basically like the Bond car. Like they're these very, very expensive British sports cars, like $200,000 expensive, like real expensive. So, but we were like, we're all dressed up from the wedding. We can go. So we went and sat in them and, pretended like we could afford them. And it was a lot of fun. But yeah, then we went back to Wesley's parents' place. Sunday was sort of a day that we spent with his parents, and then Monday we both flew back to our respective homes. The nice thing is, well, not really nice, I booked both of our flights, so it turned out that we both actually could go to the airport at the same time, even though our flights were not leaving at exactly the same time, but it was close enough that we could, both go to the airport at the same time. So we got to hang out a little bit at the airport until my flight left, and then Wesley made his way home. And then it was back to work. So like this was my week last week, lots of stuff to do. Like Wednesday I had just a bunch of meetings. Thursday, so this is now Thursday the 23rd, our fall semester started. Luckily nothing starts for me until this next week, or well, I guess this week when you guys are seeing it. So the classes I'm taking start this week. Two of the classes I'm teaching, like two of the labs I'm teaching start this week. The other lab I'm teaching won't start for another couple weeks. But yeah, so luckily I get to sort of slide into things a little bit. But yeah, I had a dentist appointment. My last cleaning before I move. I might be getting some other work done, sort of like some preventative work done, but it was my last cleaning before I move. And those of you who've been around for a little while, you know that last fall I went through a whole ordeal getting a whole bunch of fillings done because I just have garbage teeth. And I had another cleaning where I had no new cavities. So that's 2 cleanings in a row with no new cavities, which is really great. I'm very excited about that. So now I just have to decide if I'm going to be, basically I need a crown on one of my teeth, but I'm just trying to decide if I'm going to do that before I leave or wait till I go. It also doesn't help that my dentist is pregnant and due in October, so I kind of also have to work around that. So we'll see. I may be seeing them again, but I'm done with cleanings there. And then yeah, Friday we had a couple other things done. We had a welcome back lunch for the physics department. There was also a sort of student organization fair that I was at for the student org that I'm the faculty advisor for. And then this weekend has just been trying to catch up on adulting, because when I got back, I basically did not do any adulting, right? Luckily I had some food that I had put in the freezer from before I left. So I had some food to eat, but not enough. Like I never went and got groceries. So that was not fun. And then I didn't do laundry or anything. So like this weekend has been a lot of meal prep and getting laundry done and getting the apartment cleaned back up. Which is good. Like it's good to get that adulting done, but yeah, and I know, I swear, I feel like I must say this like about every other podcast, but I have a pork shoulder in the oven right now, and when I went out to make my coffee, I could smell it, and it smells so good. And I'm super excited. I know I make pork shoulder all the time, and the reason that I do that is because it's cheap, right? It's like about $2 a pound, I think, which is fairly inexpensive. And it's easy to cook because basically it's like a low and slow meat. So either you put it in the crock pot or you put it in the stove and just let it cook all day. It's very versatile. So like I will sometimes just eat it just plain. I'll just reheat it and eat it plain with like some salt and pepper. Or you can like make it into like tacos if that's a thing that you're interested in. You could make like a rice dish with it if you eat rice. I've made it into chili before. Like there's just all kinds of stuff you can do with it, and it keeps really well and it freezes really well. So I make it a lot just because it makes my life so much easier. And because like these things are huge, right? I think the one I got is maybe like 7.5 pounds. So like that's a lot of food, and I will put a good portion of it in the freezer so then I can have weeks where I don't have to buy as much meat and save money doing that and save time, and it's great. It's great all around. Highly recommend. And I basically just shred it all up and make basically pulled pork out of all of it, and then I will repurpose it in various ways. So yeah. Cooking tips from Andy, I guess. But yeah, I guess I'm trying to think of what else is exciting. I got new glasses. I don't know if you guys can tell. Maybe you can tell. But yeah, I got some new glasses. These were waiting for me in my mailbox when I came back from my trip. These are from Warby Parker. I forget what the model number is, but they might be the Hudson. But they're these, sort of navy blue wire frames, and it's been interesting because my last glasses were plastic frames, and so they sat a little bit closer to my face, whereas these ones have nose pads on them, so they sit a little further off my face, which has been interesting, kind of getting used to it. I mean, any of you guys who have glasses, you kind of know that, like when you get a new pair of glasses, there's this like adjustment period where it's like, oh, where is everything, But the nice thing about these is because they sit a little further off my face, it's less likely that I will get like eyelash marks or something on them, or less likely that they'll like bump up against my eyebrows and get eyebrow grease on them, because apparently I have greasy eyebrows. Go figure. So that's been really cool, and I've been really excited about them. And the other new thing in my life, let's see if I can grab this. The other new thing in my life is I got a new phone. I think I'd been complaining about like how old my phone was. So I was using a Samsung Galaxy S5, which is a fairly old phone. They're on the S9 now. And when I bought it, it was top of the line. So like it had made it quite a while, but it was really starting to get like super buggy, and like on the trip, it started to get to the point where it was like, okay, this is bordering on dangerous almost, because I was using it as like my GPS when I was driving down to Iowa and then back, and it would sometimes just stop. Like the whole phone would just shut down and then reboot. But it's like, okay, well now I'm driving, and it's hard to like restart your navigation when you're driving, especially like if you're driving through a place where you actually need the navigation, not just like when you're on the highway. So it's like, okay, this is ridiculous. I'm over this. So I got a new phone. I got the iPhone 8 for anyone, or the iPhone 8 Plus for anyone who's curious. And so the Plus is like a big phone. And I was worried, I was telling Wesley, like, I was really worried that, like, it would be too big, right? So my old phone, this is my old phone. This is the same size as, like, the iPhone 8, basically, the regular iPhone. And then this is the iPhone 8 Plus. So you can see how much bigger it is. And, I was telling Wesley, like, what if this one turns out to be too big? What if it's just, like, too big? He's like, I think you'll get used to it fairly quickly. boy, was he right. Like, I had to pick this phone up the other day to get some pictures and stuff off of it, and I was like, oh, it's so little. And luckily the big size of this one doesn't really bother me because I have very large hands, and so I can actually type on it one-handed. Not super easily, but I can use it one-handed. But like for me, it's not as uncomfortable as it might be for someone with smaller hands. So yeah, I've really been liking it. It's so much faster and the battery lasts so much longer, and it's magnificent in every way. But yeah, that's sort of been things for me. So like I said, this week, classes start, teaching starts, like just everything gets going, and it's my last semester doing any of this stuff. So that's both exciting and terrifying at the same time. But yeah, I'm excited and I'm ready for it. So maybe that's it. I think I should stop yakking on about my life. And this clip is getting pretty long. So yeah, I should stop yakking. So I'm going to finish my coffee and get this edited, and yeah, just enjoy the rest of my weekend. So thanks very much for hanging out with me, especially if you made it all the way to the end of this. And I will see you guys next week for the AMA. If you haven't sent in your questions, make sure to get those in at the link below. I think my plan is to sit down on Monday to record. So that will be on the 3rd of September. So get your questions in before the 3rd of September so I can answer them in the AMA. And yeah, see you guys then. Bye.